In this episode of the G4 Sumobot series, we'll be building wheels for our Sumobot. Begin by hiding your Sumobot body. You can do this in the scene outliner by clicking on the Hide button next to the hierarchy group. Let's create a new hierarchy group for the hub. Right-click in the scene outliner and choose New Collection. Double-click on its name. Let's call this one Hub. Reset the 3D cursor to the origin using Shift-C and add a cylinder. We're going to change the number of vertices on this cylinder to 128, and we're going to give it a radius of 17 millimeters, and we're going to give it a depth of 24 millimeters. We're going to be adding a silicone grip to our hub in order to give our Sumobot traction, and we need a way to keep the silicone grip from slipping off the hub. So what we're going to do is we're going to narrow the center of this hub. We're going to give it a bit of a waist. My cursor back at the center here. We're going to create a new cylinder. We're going to set the number of vertices on it to 64, and we're going to give it a radius of 20 millimeters. And we're going to give this one a depth of 10 millimeters. Let's rename our cylinders so that we don't lose track of what we have here. We'll call the first cylinder the hub. Let's call this next cylinder the hub outer ring. And we're going to be performing a Boolean operation that removes the center out of this. And then we'll be using it in the third step to create the waist on our hub. So now that we've renamed them, let's, for right now, just hide our hub and create a cylinder. We're going to give this cylinder a radius of 14, and we're going to give it a depth of 24. And this is going to allow us to cut the center out of this outer ring. Select the outer ring and go down to the modifiers panel, and from generate choose Boolean. We're going to select the new cylinder. We'll give it a new name here in a second and press apply. Let's call this cylinder the hub inner ring. Now hide the hub inner ring. Let's show our hub again and select it. To the modifiers panel, under generate, grab a Boolean, and let's select the hub outer ring. This will create the waist. Press apply and hide the hub outer ring. Now we have a waist on our wheel that will hold our silicone grip. I show you how to create this in a later video. Right now, the problem with our setup is that if we create a silicone grip, there's still a potential that it will slip on the hub. It won't fall off the hub at this point because the silicone will fill the waist that we just created on the hub, but there's nothing to lock the silicone grip in place. To do this, we're going to create some slots. Start by going to the top view, and we're going to go into wireframe mode. Create a new cube. And let's change the dimensions on that cube to 6 in the X direction, 4 in the Y direction, and 18 in the Z direction. Click on the Move gizmo, and we're going to change the location of this to 15 on X. This will create a slot that is 3 millimeters deep from the edge of our waist. We're going to do this by moving the center of this cube to our origin. To do this, up here at Object, click Select Origin and say Origin to 3D Cursor. Now we're going to duplicate this square. Shift D to duplicate and press Escape to hold it in its original position. We're going to rotate around the Z-axis, choose 90 degrees. We're going to repeat this process for the other two angles. Shift D, escape 180, Shift D, escape, and here we are at 270. And we're going to group all of these slots into a single object. So holding down Shift, select each one of these slots and join them together using Control J. Let's rename this. We're going to call these the grip slots. Now we need to go back into our regular viewport shading mode. And I think I'd like to give the hub its own color right now. So I'm going to select the hub and I'm going to come down here to the materials panel. I'm going to create a new material. And I'm going to be here in the viewport display. So if you're seeing something else, simply collapse it until you can see the viewport display and then choose a color. I'm going to choose, well, blue. That'll match the Sumobot color that we've already created. Now that I've done that, I'm going to grab a modifier from the Generate menu, and I'm going to find the grip slot. And there it is there. And I'm going to apply it. And now I'm going to hide the grip slots. So now I have created slots in the hub that the silicone grip will fill as well as the waist, and this should lock the silicone grip onto the hub. Next, I'm going to create space for the axle that this hub will sit on. I'm going to go into X-ray mode for this, and I'm going to create a new cylinder. This cylinder, I'm going to reduce it down to 32 vertices, and I'm going to give it a radius of 1.4. I'm working with a hex shaft on the robot that is 3 millimeters, and so this will create a hole in the center of this hub that is 2.8 millimeters in diameter, and this will create a friction fit with the 3 millimeter hex shaft coming off my robot's gearbox. Let's give this a depth of 30, and I'm going to return out of X-ray mode, and I can see that this axle now extends through the top and bottom of the hub. Select the hub and grab a Boolean modifier, and it's just called cylinder right now, so I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to rename the cylinder to axle. I'm going to hide the axle, and now we have a completed wheel hub that we can use on our Sumobot. I'm going to add a little decoration to it though to spice up its appearance. And to do that, I'm going to create a new cylinder. This cylinder, I'm going to keep with 32 vertices, and we're going to make this an oblong cylinder. So to do that, I'm going to come up here to dimensions, and I'm going to give it a dimension of 6 millimeters in the X direction, 4.5 millimeters in the Y direction, and 10 millimeters in the Z direction. And I want to have this decoration extend out the top of the Sumobot hub here. So I'm going to move its location to 7 in the X direction. I'm going to keep it at 0 in Y and 8 in Z. And so this pops the decorative pocket that I'm going to create in the top of this hub out the top. And similar to what we did with the grip slots, I'm going to create a number of these. I'm going to start by moving the origin of this geometry to the 3D cursor. Remember, you have to have your 3D cursor at the center of the geometry. Shift C will put it there. I'm now going to duplicate this object that I've created, escape to hold it in place, and this time I'm going to rotate it around the origin in 60-degree increments. So here in the on the Z axis. I'm going to rotate it 60 degrees. And I'm going to repeat that process. Shift D, escape, and rotate it by a further 60 degrees. And we just keep doing that. And once more. And there we have it. Now in the scene outliner, I'm going to shift select each one of these. And you can see that as I select an additional one of these objects, they get an orange outline. The first one that I started in the series maintains its gold or light orange color. Once I have them all selected, I'm going to join them into a single group. And these guys I will call hub holes. And they're purely decorative. They don't do anything except give this somewhat of a mag wheel look. Select the hub, and from the modifier panel, select a boolean, and we're going to find our hub holes. There they are there. And the boolean difference will give us that decorative look. Now you can't see it because we are in orthographic top mode, so to see it, rotate into perspective mode, and here you can see the decorative pockets that we've put on the top of our hub. We have now completed creating the hubs for our Sumobot. In the next video, you'll learn how to create silicone wheel grips.